There's a saying that only the poor or the crazy ever walk here, but it's not entirely true. So does the writer, Will Self. Will is a controversial social commentator and the author of 20 books. He's won the Geoffrey Faber, Aga Khan and Bollinger Everyman Woodhouse Prizes, and been shortlisted 3 times for the Bad Sex in Fiction Awards. Notorious for his addictions and excesses, he's moved on to a legal obsession: walking. But Will Self doesn't do ordinary walks. This 5-day walk is field work for a new book about the impact of the physical environment on the human psyche.
A walk like this, where I left my house in South London and walked on to Heathrow Airport, flew to LAX, and then have come on this morning through the outskirts of Los Angeles heading to downtown. It's a way of violently undercutting the fact of intercontinental air travel by walking either side of it for long distances. I won't know till I get to Hollywood whether it's kind of worked. What my kind of practice of psychogeography is all about is decoupling physical from human geography, which I think goes back to the Situationists, who were a tiny groupuscule of insufferably pretentious Marxists in 1950s Paris.
The Situationists combined avant-garde art with radical politics and cartography. Their aim was to destroy capitalism and transform urban space. Their method was the derive, a drift on foot through the city, going wherever the mood took them and recording their impressions. Then they cut up and rearranged the official map of Paris according to their notes. Their derives could be shambolic, as this account written by Guy Debord reveals.
On Tuesday, the 6th of March, 1956, G.A. Debord and Gilles J. Wallman meet in the Rue de Jardin-Paul and head north to explore the possibilities of traversing Paris at that latitude.
Il faut remonter son moral aussi.
Absolument.
C'est important, moi je pense.
T'as complètement raison.
Dans les rues de Paris.
Despite their intentions, they quickly find themselves drifting towards the east and traversing the upper section of the 11th arrondissement, in an area that's a good example of the repulsive petty bourgeois landscape.
C'est un endroit qui est quand même merveilleux à Paris.
On the north side of Rue de Coron, a staircase gives them access to a network of alleys marred by an annoyingly picturesque character. Upon studying the terrain, they feel able to discern the existence of an important psychogeographic hub.
Eh oui, on va à la dérive, c'est vrai. On y va.
Having taken the boulevard MacDonald up to the Canal Saint-Denis, they follow the right bank of this canal, heading north, making stop at various bars patronized by the bargemen.
Soyez réaliste.
They abandon the canal at the familiar lock and arrive at 6:30 at a Spanish bar, referred to by the workers who frequent it as the Tavern of the Revolters.
Though their derives didn't immediately tear capitalism apart, in 1967, Debord published a powerful attack on Western society.
Debord's principal and indeed only work, The Society of the Spectacle, I think is an astonishing book. Summed up by a graffito I once saw on a shopping mall in England, which just said, "Work, consume, die." And his view was that the modern city reflects that kind of ethos, and it reflects it to such a level that it's no longer a real place.
6 months after his book came out, Debord's slogans were everywhere. The Situationists incited Parisian students with their anti-capitalist rhetoric. And in May 1968, a protest at the Sorbonne University erupted into violence and triggered a nationwide strike. Soon after, the Situationists imploded under the weight of opposing egos. In 1994, Guy Debord committed suicide. In his last film, he wrote,
"We did not seek the formula for overturning the world in books, but in wandering, ceaselessly drifting for days on end, none resembling the one before. And then, one ill-fated day, the finest player of us all got lost in the forest of madness. But there is no greater madness than the present organization of life."
Other French rebels picked up the idea of walking where the Situationists left off. The philosopher Michel de Certeau argued that a city is a concept, generated and mapped by governments who see it as a unified whole, like a god looking down from above. Well reaches Wilshire Boulevard, the first street ever designed to be viewed from a car, not on foot.
You know, here you have the great westward expansion of Los Angeles, you know, a fundamental motor city, a city in which, you know, there was almost one car for every adult member of the population as early as 1922. So it's the first city to be defined in a linear and automotive way.
Wilshire's buildings were streamlined and bold. The iconic Ambassador Hotel was one of the finest. Now it's a building site.
There it is, the absence of the Ambassador Hotel, just around the corner where Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. But the absent building exemplifies a fact about the urban context, which is, you know, you don't know what it's got till it's gone.
In Australia, the fiercely energetic composer Percy Grainger walked at breakneck speed until he felt pain. He used walking to control another compulsion: self-flagellation. Grainger was famous for his extreme walks. On tour in South Africa, he finished a concert at midnight and set off straight away on foot for Durban, 65 miles away. He walked furiously all night and arrived at 6 p.m, just in time to leap onto the stage, hot, sweaty, hyped up and ready to perform. Grainger's addiction to walking began as a young boy on a journey between Melbourne and Adelaide. He felt a deep yearning to walk in the landscape he could see rolling by. The powerful image of the barren landscape seared into his brain. Though he was often on tour, this was his spiritual home. In between the relentless concerts, Grainger managed to do a 3-day walk that profoundly influenced his music. He started in Tailem Bend, South Australia, and walked 80 miles to Keith, absorbing the desert and sleeping under the stars.
What stirs me to music most is nature, and walking in nature. Barren, treeless, greenless nature I like best, like barren hill country. The bodily force of life itself is what I long to invest my music with.
In California, Grainger discovered a small town called Barstow in a desert that looks strangely like Australia. There he walked, took photographs, and dreamed of home.
I have a kind of boring little sort of bureaucratic way of doing things. You see all the post-it notes, they tend to go up from the notebooks arranged up across the back of the desk. They go up on the walls, they come down into a scrapbook. under sections, and then there are other pages that have structural diagrams. I tend to write first drafts as early in the morning as possible. I always write a complete draft before I start revising. I like to write on the typewriter rather than the computer because it's less distracting. I don't like machine noise. The way things get done is to allow yourself to be within the narrative. However torturous or difficult it seems at the time, there's no shortcuts. The eventual Walking to Hollywood book, it's about a kind of investigation into a kind of personal heart of darkness as much as anything else.